Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton, and I want to thank you for joining us today for another great episode. On the phone, we have Ethan Agarwal. He is the founder, solo founder, of a company called Aaptiv. Their website is aaptiv.com. That's AAPTIV.com. And they are essentially an on-demand audio fitness app. So for people that are either working out in the gym or working out outside or at home, they have these audio fitness classes for everybody, regardless of what type of workout you want. Company is about 27 people right now. They've raised $1.52 million over a couple rounds, kind of pre-seed and seed. Company's based in New York, and that's pretty much all we got. So let's talk to Ethan. Ethan, how are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. So why don't you tell us in your own words what your company does?
Sure. So Aaptiv is it's an on-demand audio fitness app, and we combine motivation, instruction, and music. So the easiest way to think about the product is if you were to capture sort of the audio experience from a really high-quality studio fitness class, or if you're working one-on-one with a personal trainer, where you have a really motivating trainer right in your ear, and really the right set of instructions and the right motivation. We take that experience and we scale it through the use of technology.
So where did this idea come from? What motivated you to start the company?
Yeah, so I come from a finance background. I did investment banking for a few years. I did an MBA at Wharton. I was at a hedge fund for a while, and I was at McKinsey for a few years as a consultant. And I put on a lot of weight in grad school and tried to lose it, and wanted to hire a trainer. But I'm on the road 4 days a week, and hiring a trainer in a city that you're traveling to is next to impossible. And I discovered that, even if I'm in New York, where I live, if I wanted to hire a trainer, there's personal trainers, there's boutique fitness classes, but even those are pretty challenging logistically in the sense that you have to book these classes ahead of time. They often sell out. You have to go to a certain place at a certain time. You're penalized for not showing up. There was just a lot of sort of logistical hassles related to getting really high quality training.
And they get very expensive too.
And exactly, and it can get very expensive. And I'm in a fortunate position where I could afford those things, but most people can't. So either you have a geographic restriction where you don't live in a major city, or to your point, you have the financial restriction where you can't even afford it. So I looked at, what was out there, and no one was bringing really high quality audio instruction to scale. So that was my idea. And the reason that, we decided to go with audio is I looked at, the sort of wide variety of fitness apps that were out there that focus on video. And I'm a runner, and any video-based app is not going to help me because I'm not going to run down the street while staring at a video on my phone. That doesn't make any sense. So I knew that I had to create an audio-based product for it to be successful.
So you started working on this in what year?
2015.
Okay, because I know you launched in late 2015. So how long did it take to build the first version of the app or the service?
Yeah, it took about 6 months to build the first version.
And had you done any fundraising prior to that?
No. It was, you sort of tell people what you're working on all the time, but I wasn't really running a concrete process.
Okay. So you kind of bootstrapped it yourself in the beginning and then raised the seed round?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So what was your process for finding the right investors?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the beginning, you get a lot of advice on how to find the right investors. And, I'm a little bit, I don't want to use the word cynical, but I try to be a little bit more realistic in the way that it goes to raise money, especially for your first round. The people who have been around and who have raised a lot of money will tell you it's very important to find the right investor early on because they can guide you, et cetera. And I think that's definitely true in an ideal case where you have your pick. Unfortunately, that's not true for most companies. And it wasn't true for us because, when you first hear about another fitness company, you're not that excited by it. So VCs are known for having a model of, sort of spray and prey. And the truth is that I think that most sort of seed founders need to have a similar model when they go raise capital, which is that you need to be hyper diligent and extremely, extremely shameless when it comes to raising capital. So I had a spreadsheet of 250 investors, seed investors, which I sourced from Googling, Crunchbase, looking at the investors in competitors' companies, my network, et cetera, second degree, third degree. I mean, just compiling that list itself was not an easy task. Then, contacting each of them with a personal note, ideally through a double opt-in recommendation, and then just hounding them, frankly, to the point where you're begging for meetings sometimes. And, it can be a little bit jarring because you do lose, a little bit of, if you have the pride or the ego or whatever, I don't think that's going to serve you well. So you just sort of have to suck it up and
you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, I felt like I think audio cut out for a second. No, you're definitely right. If you have a big ego or you're afraid of rejection, fundraising is going to be a very difficult process because there's a lot of rejection and a lot of no's. How many investors do you think you actually presented to or got on the phone with?
I contacted all 250. I probably got no response at all from about 150. I got email rejections from, I would say, 100, or let's say about 80, and then 20 of them would actually take a meeting. Okay. So a little under 10% success rate just to get a meeting.
And then out of those meetings, you closed on a handful of investors, right?
Well, in the first round, we only closed on one. So I literally closed on one fund out of the 250 that I contacted.
Wow.
I would like to think that I did something wrong, and that's not an indication of where things are in the market. But in the meantime, that was over a year ago. So in the last year, I've spoken with many friends and other folks that I've met, and that sort of hit rate sounds pretty common actually, where it's often 1% or less from the top of the funnel to actually closing funding.
Yeah, I would say through my last fundraising for my company, I probably contacted 125 to 150 investors, and I bet less than 5 of them were willing to get on the phone and talk about it. So
yeah, there you go. You've been through
whether it's, I think contacting them through AngelList proved to be very unsuccessful. But then even through Twitter DMs and emails and other stuff, I mean, it's just, you like you said before, I mean, you kind of just try a lot of different things. Or, I mean, I wasn't overly picky. I didn't need a ton of strategic advice. I just needed capital, to execute on the plan. So, and was this Pair Investors that did that seed round or the pre-seed round?
That's right. Okay. Pair. They're formerly known as Pedman Mar. They changed their name. I can't recall, maybe 6 months ago now. Okay. They're a seed fund out of San Francisco.
So talk to us about after you raise the capital, you get ready to launch the product in late 2015. What was going to be your marketing strategy or your customer acquisition strategy back then?
Yeah. So another thing that maybe is a little bit atypical, but I was always of the belief that early on you do need to spend money to buy users, especially because we were a paid service, right? So if I go out telling people about my $10 a month product and I expect them to sign up without advertising, I think it's a really tough sell. And there's often a sense of like a kryptonite-like relationship with paid advertising for young startups that a lot of companies or VCs have. But I actually don't think that's right. I think if you're selling a product and it's an extremely crowded market, which basically every industry is today, there's nothing wrong with advertising to buy a member or buy a customer. And the thing that I like about that is that it tells you very early on whether the thing that you're working on, the product that you're trying to sell, is real or not, right? Because no doubt that excellent products will succeed virally. But if your product can't get a bite even when you're paying people, paying for advertising dollars, it'll tell you very quickly that your product is not there. So that's one of the reasons that I like it. But so we spent, just like you said, right? I didn't need a lot of strategic advice. I just needed capital. So I needed money to go buy our first set of users.
So where were you guys spending money on? Which platform did you have the most success in the beginning?
Definitely Facebook, by far was the most successful. We started using lookalike audiences, which proved to be extremely successful. Obviously the scale on Facebook is beyond other platforms. Then when they opened up Instagram advertising in, I think it was March of 2016. So we opened up Instagram, which also ended up proving very successful. Ironically, video ads work better on Instagram and image ads work better on Facebook. But then, yeah, it's interesting. I think it's because it's still the less common thing that you see on the platform. So that's what catches people's eyes. But, we tried Twitter, Pinterest, etc. Nothing has the same traction that Facebook or Instagram do.
What do you think you were paying to acquire each new customer?
That is something we can't disclose publicly. But what we do focus, what I can tell you is, we're a subscription business, and so the ratio that matters for us, just like any other subscription business, is the ratio of lifetime value, LTV to CAC, customer acquisition cost, right? All the way up from companies like Salesforce.com, all the way down to the smallest subscription business. All they care about is the LTV CAC ratio, and a healthy ratio is somewhere between 3 and 5x, and that's exactly what we target, is sort of the 4x range.
Okay, no, and exactly. When I ask what you're acquiring customers for, the next question was going to be, what's the lifetime value of a customer?
Right,
do you guys
right.
do you have a feeling or a sense for what that number might be? I know it's kind of still early, but you guys have probably, you probably had some people that signed up for the service a year and a half ago when you first launched, and they're still using it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Our LTV is actually quite strong. I can tell you that it's well north of $100.
Okay. Yeah, so that means they're sticking with you for at least a year or close to it.
That's right.
So fundraising, marketing, how has that marketing strategy changed over the last year and a half? I guess you kind of alluded to it, where you've tried a lot of things and you found that Facebook and Instagram are working the best. In terms of content, are you guys doing anything?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've discovered is that you need to continually refresh the creative that you're running, right? So even at the scale that we're at today, content will be king, both in terms of the product, but also in terms of advertising. So importantly, if you spend $10 a day on Facebook and you're acquiring one member from those $10, if you spend $20 the next day, you're not acquiring two members, you're acquiring, 1.8. And if you spend $100 the following day, you're not acquiring 10 users, you're acquiring probably 60 or something, right? So advertising scale does not grow proportionally, the effectiveness of it. So in order to continue to have effectiveness as you continue to spend more and more, you need to refresh your creative. So one of the things that we started doing, for example, is that we hired an in-house creative team, and we shoot all of our own original photography and videography, versus previously, we were just buying stock footage from Shutterstock or wherever. Now we actually do all of it in-house.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So when did you guys make that decision or make that move?
Yeah, only recently, because it's obviously not cheap to do that.
Right,
We made that decision about 3 months ago.
But so far it's proved to be a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we now have a schedule for creative refreshes. So, every 2 weeks we're running a new video ad, we're running new pictures, and it's all original content. It's funny, when I see ads on my Facebook feed or, around the city or whatever, I very quickly start noticing stock photography because I've seen almost all of it. So I think the user ends up seeing a difference between, I've seen that picture 10 other times from 10 other companies, versus, oh, this video or this picture is unique. This is something that's particularly eye-catching. So it's not cheap or easy, but if you can afford it, it's definitely worth it.
So on the website, about halfway down on the homepage, you have these different, target exercise areas or whatnot. treadmill, running, elliptical, cycling, yoga, strength training, and race training. So the two that kind of catch my eye are yoga, which is something I know that I need to start doing, and strength training because I'm a big, bodybuilder slash weightlifter. So if someone asked me, they were looking to, change up their strength training or yoga routine, how would this service benefit them? Obviously, they'd sign up and they're paying $10 a month. What's kind of included in these audio fitness courses or classes?
Sure. So, yoga is a great example, actually. So historically, digital yoga classes have always been on video, right? You watch it on your TV or your iPad or even your phone, and you sort of mimic the actions that the trainer is doing. The problem with video-based yoga is that any pose where your head is not staring directly forward is actually hindered by the use of video, right? So you can never, for example, do a downward dog. You can never lie on your back. You can never close your eyes because the trainer is saying, okay, watch what I'm doing and do the next step. So you have to crane, right? So you have to crane your neck to look at the iPad to watch what the next set of instructions are. And that's been a big problem with digital yoga instruction, in my opinion. And that includes YouTube videos, all the apps that are out there, websites, et cetera. So the right trainer is actually able to guide you through an entire yoga class using just audio cues. So we're hyper diligent about the trainers that we hire. They're really, really good. And they're able to guide you through a yoga class using just audio-based instruction. Strength training is the same way, right? If you think about how that works logistically, while you're at home on Wi-Fi, you download this big strength training video. You bring your $600 iPad to the gym, you put it on the ground next to a bunch of really heavy weights and people walking by, then you're 6 feet away from it and you're trying to listen with the volume at max and watch someone instruct you on like a 9-inch screen. It doesn't make any sense, right? So what's much more powerful is putting the iPhone in an armband and sticking it on your arm and actually just listening to the trainer guide you through a workout. So we're not so much about the novelty of like a really sexy trainer with a six-pack doing this impressive workout and you trying to look like that person. It's more about just really high-quality instruction and really high-quality training. And the best way to do that, sorry?
I was going to say, so with the strength training, how much variety is there in the workouts?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, there's dozens of classes. The vast majority of them actually use body weight. And the reason for that is that we want you to be able to work out anywhere, right? So some people may not have access to equipment, or maybe you want to work out outside, or you're in your hotel room or whatever. So we use body weight for almost all of our training, but there are some classes that also include dumbbells, kettlebells, free weights, machines, etc. So actually strength training is our second most popular category, and it does very, very well. So there's a really long list of options there.
How many different trainers do you guys currently work with?
16.
Okay.
We're fortunate in the sense that, since our content scales, right, we're not like a studio where every time we open another location, we have to hire 10 more trainers, right? Our trainers record a class and it's listened to by everyone. So we're able to be hyper picky about which trainers we hire, and we only end up hiring, really the best. I mean, we've received well over 1,000 applications at this point, and we've only hired 16. So, we're really picky.
I'm trying to think what other questions I want to ask you about. Anything that we skipped over in terms of, just building this company? I mean, 27 people is a decent sized startup. What are those 27 people typically doing? I mean, what % are engineers versus, marketing versus customer support?
Yeah. So we have about 10 engineers. We have 6 that work in marketing. We have a set that works in customer support. We have a creative team. We have a sound engineering team, which is a really talented group of folks. And then we have a few folks that sit in sort of the management team. So that's how it breaks out. I think the one thing that, we alluded to briefly earlier, but I think is worth exploring is the distinction between user behavior and changing user behavior. So one of the things that I found that I think is not successful with other video fitness apps, and I think this is true for other industries as well, is they're asking for too significant of a behavioral change for the user. And our thesis from day one has been, what is the minimum amount of behavioral change required to make the user pay for my product? So what that means is, if I create this like really cool video-based workout, and I'm trying to get a runner to try my product, I'm asking them to give up their outdoor run and come do the workout in the living room, right? And maybe that guy will try it for a month or two because I have some cool celebrity involved or something. But ultimately, that person is going to go back to running outside because that's what they like to do. But the retention of that business is not going to be very successful. Versus in our case, what we said, if you look at the app or even you look at the website, we have classes for treadmill, elliptical, spin, yoga, 5K, et cetera. And so the idea is like, let's say that you like to run Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m. for 30 minutes and you listen to hip hop. Great. We have 100 classes that fit that exact qualification. So keep up with your schedule. Just use one of our classes. It'll be a much better experience, right? Or let's say you like to do yoga when you travel to London, work, and you like to work out in your hotel room. Great. We have dozens of classes that fit that specific requirement, as opposed to making you change your behavior into the product that we created. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Have you guys used any influencers to help promote your service? I mean, I would think that, certainly since you're going after the people that are interested in fitness and in health and wellness, some of those fitness influencers on Instagram have millions and millions of followers, and I know they're not cheap to work with. But have you guys explored any of that stuff yet?
We have. With influencers, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, the two learnings that we've had with influencers are, one, that it actually pays to start small. So rather than, spending whatever, $50K for someone with a couple million followers, much better to dedicate the time to find people with a couple thousand followers, spend a few $100s on each of them, and actually their influence tends to be significantly more within those followers than everyone who, the millions of people who follow some of the larger influencers. So that's one, is to start small. And then number two, which I found interesting, is it's actually not about necessarily finding influencers within your domain. So for us, it's not just about fitness influencers. It's about finding influencers who have a very strong relationship with their user base, regardless of what they're talking about. So even if they're talking about literature or something, if they were to tell their user base, even if it's a couple thousand people, hey, usually we talk about literature, but I recently discovered this workout app that I really like, they will be much more inclined to follow the advice of the host than if it's, a Ryan Seacrest or someone of that caliber who talks about all kinds of things.
What have you guys looked at getting any of those, kind of, I guess, on the influencer track still, any of those celebrity Instagram people to become trainers, in order to, recruit their own followers? I don't know if that would work or not.
It may very well work. We actively decided not to pursue that strategy. We believe sort of in building our own stars. And one of the reasons is that what we find with customer acquisition through influencers is that you typically get a spike, a 1-day spike or a 1-week spike when they post about it. But in order for the people that are joining you to be high quality, long-term subscribers, they need to be motivated by more than just a post from an influencer. Right. They need to really understand the value proposition of the product, et cetera. And so I would much rather, take longer to build a network of much more powerful and long-term users than see a 1-day spike of, people who are sort of following trends.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. What have been 2 or 3 of the biggest challenges so far over the last 1.5 or 2 years?
Sure. I think one of the, I don't know if it's a challenge, but one of the things that we've been working through is ultimately these companies are all about the team. And building, an excellent team is not an easy thing to do. And in the case, for someone like me, I'm extremely picky about the folks that I work with. So I think, we probably had some seats open for longer than would be advised because I was waiting to find the exact right person. But when I did find that exact right person, I was, it turned out to be the right thing to do. So I think, one of the considerations is just making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the best people, even if it means waiting an extra 3, 6, 9 months even to find that right person, because the wrong person is going to be far more costly than anything else.
Any tips or suggestions on, what, okay, I'm trying to think how I want to word this. What has been your recruiting strategy in terms of where are you typically finding the right people to join your team? Do you guys use recruiters, or do you post in any specific job sites, or is it just word of mouth or through your network?
It's all of the above. And frankly, it's a very similar strategy to the fundraising strategy, which is just complete shamelessness, right? So you certainly have to post it all over, AngelList, LinkedIn, all the usual places. You certainly should get in touch with all the recruiters. You have to aggressively pursue your own network. And then when you find the people, typically the person you're going to try to find is actually working somewhere else, right? And they're probably making more money. It's probably a bigger company, better brand name, et cetera. So you have to be a consummate salesman and really believe in the thing that you're selling, obviously, because you've decided to dedicate your own life to it. But B is, you have to be shameless. People won't respond to you for 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. You have to get back to them. You have to take them out for dinner. You have to tell them what you're doing to the point where they have no choice but to respond to you. And then eventually the tide starts turning and they start seeing, how passionate you are and what you've built. And that's typically the difference between your company and where they're working today, which is that the passion and the energy is much stronger.
Gotcha. Okay. Are all your people in New York as well?
That's right.
Okay. And in terms of, winning some of those people, I'm sure some of them are either working at some very well-funded startups or Fortune 500 companies. How do you compete on more than just the money?
Yeah, I think what you have to do, the way that I always think about this stuff, is figuring out what motivates people. Because it's not always the same thing, right? In fact, it's almost never the same thing. Some people are motivated by money. Those are usually not the people you want to work with unless you have lots of it, and that's exactly the person you need. Some people are motivated by titles. Some are motivated by responsibility. Some like challenges. Some like risk as a motivator. Some like brand name recognition. So you have to figure out what the things are that motivates the person, and the best way to do that is to ask them point blank. And I ask that question of every person that I ever interview: what motivates you? And the ones that are particularly concerning are the ones who don't have an answer, because if you haven't thought about it, there's probably some other considerations. But once they tell you what it is that motivates them, if that's something that is a competitive advantage of yours, then you should absolutely close that person. If it's not, then you have to figure out a way to convince them that the thing that you have is better than where they are today.
What's your favorite thing about being the founder of this company?
Oh, it's definitely the members. I mean, what we call our customers. People share phenomenal stories about how we've helped them. And, running a startup is not easy any day. But when you read the stories about what people are using your product for that you conceived one day in your living room, and now it's out there and lots of people are using it, that's a pretty cool thing. I'll give you an example. There's a woman who sent us a message. I won't disclose her name, but she said, I have multiple sclerosis, I have 2 kids, and I have a job, and this is the first app that's let me work out on my own schedule, right? And so someone who has all those things going on in her life and still decides that she wants to make fitness a priority should not have to spend a lot of money or go through a lot of effort or drive 30 minutes to a gym. She should get everything she needs for a reasonable price, very easily accessible, to allow her to maximize her time because she's living such a busy life. And so knowing that I helped that person who I've never met before is a really powerful experience. And it's by far my favorite part of the company.
Are you able to share any of the demographic stuff about your, data around your members? Meaning, do you have more men or women using it? Do you have, more people in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s? Are they in,
Yeah, I can.
typically in?
Sure. Yeah, so it's more women than men. We started originally with cardio classes, and I think women tend to do more cardio versus men tend to do
Yeah.
more strength and weightlifting. And so since we launched strength and weightlifting, those our demographic of men has certainly picked up, but it's still mostly women. One thing that I'm very proud of is that we're not just in the big cities. We have a pretty significant population in sort of rural areas or parts of the country that are not dominated by trendy fitness things. So we're really appealing to a wide swath of folks across all income brackets. I mean, we have a certain percentage of folks who actually make less than $25,000 a year that are using our product, all the way up to certain partners at VC firms that are using our product. So the income and the geographic range are both very significant, which is something that I'm really proud of.
Have you guys had any success with partnerships? I'm thinking either supplement companies or fitness clothing companies or, anyone else that's in the fitness or health or wellness space that would make a good partner for you?
Yeah, we approached partnerships a little bit differently. So we didn't do any partnerships for almost the first full year because we were so focused on building the product and getting our word out through, acquisition and word of mouth marketing, just to get people to know about us. And when you're small and early, the terms of partnerships tend to be unfavorable and they tend to take up a lot of your time. But now that we've grown and people know who we are a little bit, we started doing a lot more partnerships. And similarly to what I was saying before with influencers, my advice is always to stick with smaller communities of highly dedicated folks as opposed to going to, the list with 20 million people on it. Both because the efficiency of the targeting is going to be far higher for smaller lists of folks, but also because with email partnerships, any company that does a lot of them loses credibility in the eyes of their own members, right? So they don't open the email, they don't click through, they just see it as another promotional email. Versus if a company sends an email once a year saying, this is the best fitness app I've ever used, we're crazy about it, then their members are much more likely to listen to it. So I think even partnerships, have to be done sort of selectively as opposed to just going after a wide swath of them.
Okay. I guess the last couple of questions here. What are your two top goals for this year or next year?
We just want to grow our membership base. I mean, we feel like we have a great product that gets a lot of great feedback, and we're going to continue to create more content, which is relevant to the members that we have today and the ones that we don't have yet. So growing our membership base. And two is just getting the word out there. It's a crowded space. And while we are confident in the quality of the product, as are our members, the folks who haven't heard of us or who maybe have heard of us but don't understand what we do, it's our responsibility to make sure that we educate them properly on how the product works and why we're differentiated. So those are two sort of just ongoing, tangible things that we're working on.
And what's the end game here? And be honest. I mean, I know that's a hard question to answer because, I think as entrepreneurs, we just put our head down and we try to build and grow. But I mean, do you think, in 5 years, is this an independent company that's cash flow positive, or is this going to be another big acquisition by Under Armour or Nike, or what do you think might happen down the road?
Yeah, look, I mean, if I'm being honest, all options are on the table, right? I think any entrepreneur that says, I'm only going to go public or I'm only going to run this as a private corporation is not doing a fiduciary responsibility to their investors, right? If no matter what you're valued at, if someone comes in and offers you 10x to buy you out, you actually have to consider that offer. Otherwise, you're not doing your duty to your shareholders. Or similarly, if things are not going well and you have to sell at a fire sale price or whatever, you owe it to your investors to consider these offers. So that's one, is that I'm very candid and realistic about the options that are available. Two is, in 5 years, someone is going to be dominating this market. I know that for sure because I know the product is so good and I know the market needs it. The only question in my mind is it going to be us or not? And that's the answer to that is just execution. So if it's us, great. If it's not, it's someone else. But in 5 years, someone is doing this, is dominating the market, and is making a lot of money off of it because there's such a dramatic need for this. And then the last thing I'll say is that, people ask me about competition a lot. And the truth is, I actually don't really fear competition that much because the market is so big that I very realistically see quite a number of players all doing very well in this market, in 5 to 10 years. So, for example, if you look at video, right, there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's Amazon, there's HBO Go, there's Showtime, et cetera. The list goes on. And all these companies are doing phenomenally well, right? It's because the market is so big that it's okay. And often people have subscriptions to both or three of those companies, right? So similarly in this space, the market is so large that I wouldn't be surprised that if 10 years from now, there's 3 or 4 dominant businesses and they're all doing quite well.
When someone asks you how big is this market, what do you typically tell them? Are there any numbers around this?
Well, the easiest way to think about it is if you combine treadmill, elliptical, and outdoor running, there's 40 million people in the U.S. who run once a week. Once a week, that's a core user. And that's just across 3 categories out of the 15 categories that we have. Or another way to look at it is there's 54 million people in the U.S. who have a gym membership.
Okay. Yep.
Just in the U.S., and that's just adults, right? So, you're talking sort of 40, 50 million people. And, if you're doing it at $10 a month, we're talking about, $500 million a month in revenue, which is $6 billion a year in just gross revenue, right? So the market is, and that's just U.S., that's just gym goers, et cetera. So the market's actually quite large. That's why I'm pretty confident that there's room for multiple players.
And then out of the 54 million gym members, any idea what percentage of them are using personal trainers?
A very small percentage. I mean, it's under, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's under 10%. And it's because of what you said before, which is that it's just too expensive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know the trainers at my gym typically charge, for a 45 or 50-minute session, it's usually at least $60 or $70 a pop. So, you do that 3 times a week, 4 weeks a month. Exactly. That starts getting very, very expensive.
Starts getting to be serious money. Yeah,
exactly. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this great stuff with us. Did we skip over anything that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Thanks a lot for having me. This was fun.
Awesome. Okay, so then there's the website, Aaptiv.com, and I know you guys have a iOS app because I saw that in the store earlier today. What other ways can we connect with you or your company?
Yeah, so we have an iOS app, we have an Android app, we have Aaptiv.com, and actually, people should feel free to email me personally. My email is just Ethan@Aaptiv.com, AAPTIV.com. I'm more than happy to respond to people personally.
Cool. Okay, I'll put that in the show notes so they have your email address as well. Well, Ethan, thank you so much, man. Wish you the best. Excited what you're working on. I'm a big lover of the fitness and health space, so it's kind of cool that you guys are giving people a less expensive option to get into shape, or to help them stay motivated for their workouts. So I like it, and wish you guys the best going forward.
Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.